Welcome inside of Education Matters. My name is Donna Moore Westby, your host of Education Matters, where we're connecting you to the world of education one step at a time. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you can see, we are live on location at the River of Life Church right here in Aiken, South Carolina, and we're discussing a very, very important topic, one that we can't have enough dialogue on, and that is how can we improve our communities. Those folks here in this church today are willing to do what it takes to make our communities better. Let me remind you why we are here. Several months ago in the Central Savannah River area in the CSRA, the city of Aiken in particular was rocked off its foundation by the senseless killings of Officer Scotty Richardson and Officer Sandy Rogers. As a matter of fact, nothing like this had really happened in the city of Aiken since about the year of 1950. Take a look as we see some of the response.
Many people in Aiken say they're shocked and surprised that their quiet, small town is now dealing with yet another officer killed in the line of duty in such a short span of time.
You know, our hearts go out to the families, and I'm not sure that it's even really sunk in for most of the community. I think it's just kind of a shock sort of thing that this can't really be happening in our town.
This can't really be happening in our town. I'm sure that the individuals here in this church today, River of Life, probably felt the same thing. In case you are new to the area, or in case you're not familiar with what happened here in Aiken, South Carolina, and in the CSRA, courtesy of News Channel 6, take a look as they recap a timeline of those shootings.
Here's a timeline of the recent officer-involved shootings in the CSRA. Richmond County Deputy J.D. Paul was shot and killed in October after checking on a suspicious vehicle along Bobby Jones Expressway. 2 months later, Aiken Public Safety Officer Scotty Richardson was shot and killed after a traffic stop. And just a month later, on Saturday, Officer Sandy Rogers died after she responded to a suspicious vehicle in Aiken.
Did you remember that? Do you remember where you were when you heard the news of the first shooting of Officer Scotty Richardson? Do you know where you were in hearing the news on the shooting of Officer Sandy Rogers? I remember extremely vividly where I was and how I felt at the time. Today, inside of Education Matters, we're going to explore not only our feelings on how that impacted, those senseless shootings and killings impacted our area, but further and more importantly, we want to discuss today, what are we going to do about it? What are we willing to do about it? Back in May, specifically on May the 2nd, Education Matters conducted its first community forum right here in the River of Life Church. And what we thought we'd do today, as you look around this beautiful church, you will see young people from middle school to high school ages. You'll see some young adults. You'll even see some concerned citizens. We want to hear from them today. Today's topic, hear our voices, answer our questions. We're going to give our audience an opportunity to share with our panelists who are community leaders, what can we do to improve our communities, to make it better. So we're going to hear from the young people today because they need a voice as well. It's awesome to have our young people here today because many times the media portrays our young people as not caring and not caring about life or others' lives. But these young people are here to say we care, and we want you to hear our voices on how to make our communities better. Also joining us today on the stage is a distinguished group of community leaders and panelists who will help us in this discussion today. And I want you to join me in welcoming them to Education Matters. First, we have with us certainly no stranger to Education Matters, and that is Mr. Devon Harris. He is the Executive Director of Full Circle Refuge Ministries. Let's welcome him. Also, we have Mr. Roger Rollins, who is no stranger to the Aiken area. He is the executive director of the Family and Marriage Coalition, also known as FAMCO. Thank you, Mr. Roger. And then we have with us, she was on my broadcast also very recently, the Deputy Public Defender for Aiken County, and her name is Miss Kelly Perkins Brown. Thank you so much for being here as well. And then also one of our newly elected Aiken City Councilwomen, and that is Miss Gail Diggs. Thank you for being here. And let's welcome Miss Gail Diggs. She is representing also this area, so we're so glad for her to be here, and you see who your city councilwoman is. And then next to Miss Diggs is none other than the executive director of the Aiken Warriors program, and they provide, in addition to AAU athletic services to young people, they also provide mentoring opportunities, workshops, and a wide array of services for our young people. And also, in addition to that, Mr. Curtis Jenkins is our resident in-house expert as it relates to gangs because he is an inactive gang member. Let's welcome Mr. Curtis Jenkins. And then our final panelist so far, we are expecting a couple of more, is Officer Ben Harm, and he is with Aiken Public Safety. Let's welcome Officer Harm here with us. I must say, Officer Harm, when I received the notice from the city's office that you were coming, I said, now, what a name is that? Ben Harm. But certainly, we know with your passion for people and your interest in this particular topic, harm is certainly the very least of what you're wanting to get across here today. Let's go ahead and get into our discussion. And young people, I want to remind you that this is for you, as well as our adults. If you have a question, if you have an issue, if you have a concern, please don't hold it in. This is for you. Let me start by asking our audience today, who remembers where you were when you heard the news of the first Aiken shooting of Officer Scotty Richardson? Show of hands, who remembers? Hi, so I can see. Okay, all right. Let me get a response from you, young lady. How did you feel when you heard the news?
Well, I kind of felt in sort of a juxtaposition.
Let me get you to stand.
I was kind of in a juxtaposition because I'd heard of the shooting, and not only did I feel hurt because it was a public safety officer, but I also knew the accuser, and that just kind of put me in some kind of position. But I was totally devastated about the killing of Officer Scotty Richardson, and I just really hope that we as Aiken County citizens and as a community can heal from this and could really find some strategies so that this won't happen again, or to prevent incidents like this.
Excellent. Let's give a round of applause. Having heard the plea from our young lady here, and I didn't even know that this young lady also knew the accuser of the person who shot Officer Scotty Richardson, so that certainly is an difficult position to be in right now. Officer Harm, hearing a young person pour out her heart as to what the shooting meant to her and how it felt to her, what does that bring to you?
Well, it really brings a confidence that we as a community can come together and prevent these future types of incidents. And Ms. Wesby, if you let me just say, I'd really like to thank the community for their overwhelming support of the Public Safety Department in the last several months. We've been feeling the exact same emotions that the young lady expressed, and it really builds confidence from the ground up that our community will help us help them eliminate some of the issues that we do have.
I want to now turn the conversation to Mr. Curtis Jenkins because I know many of you don't know this, but Mr. Jenkins and I have a friendship that is centered around what can we do to help our young people. That's always our conversation. That's always our dialogue. How can we prevent the kinds of things that's happening in our area as it relates to violence within our young people, what's happening in our families. And Mr. Jenkins, after that second shooting of Officer Sandy Rogers, you said some very deliberate and very shaking words to me. Do you remember what you said about the Aiken area and what you see happening and why?
Yes. I believe that, not to scare people, but I thought if we didn't make a change, some type of adjustment and have a overall communication gap, that I thought that possibly our next shooting would be inside our school systems. Because the youth are crying out and they're fighting mad. But one of the things that I learned by dealing with them, that they are kind of uneducated to the part of that public safety, the law enforcement is there to protect them. But the youth itself felt as though they were being victimized instead of being protected.
Let me ask that question right now of our young people, and I want you to be honest. In order for us to deal with the problems we're dealing with, honesty has to be at the forefront, because that means we have to face the realities that there are some elements of our community that's not working. And we've got to make it better. We've got to make some adjustments. So that means confronting our issues head on. By show of hands, do you honestly believe in your heart of hearts that public safety is here for your safety and protection? Raise your hand if you feel that way. Honestly. Okay? We're still missing some hands. Who would like to share why you feel as if public safety is not your friend? We've got to address this. Anyone? Don't be shy. I'm going to go to Adrian here. I know she is quite vocal. Help us out with this, Adrian.
Well, one of the many reasons why young adults were scared to go to a police safety officer is, what we've learned at home, what we learned on the TV, and we've never been able to go to the police for any help because we're scared that the police is going to retaliate on us. We feel like we're victims in any situation, so that's why we try to handle the situation ourselves, and it ends up being this big chaos of stuff that doesn't need to happen. It's just a whole mass destruction. So.
Thank you very much for that. Officer Harm, help us out with that. Does public safety recognize that there is a trust or lack of trust factor involved in the community with helping us deal with this problem and our relationship with public safety?
Well, I think that the trust gap that she mentions is not necessarily a new thing. I grew up in Aiken, and when I was 15, 16, 17, the last thing I ever wanted to do was talk to the police myself. So we do recognize that. We do try to make ourselves as open as possible, from our mobile movie nights that we host to our various events that we do throughout the community. We try and open ourselves up to our young folks to make sure that they know we are approachable. As to what you said about the media, not to knock the media, but the media does present news in a light that might not necessarily be favorable both to the police and to the young folks in the community. If you look at the media, what do you normally see? You normally necessarily see some of the bad acts that occur, and rightfully so, because they want to report on those. But that can lead to people's thought processes in a negative light and kind of grouping all people in that same category.
All right, I want to pose a question to the panelists right now, and feel free, any of you, to chime in. We just briefly talked about one element of a bigger problem, and or dare I say problems. From your vantage point in the different areas of your expertise, it could come from the organizations with which you work, it could come from your volunteerism, or even in your own families. What was the impetus or the catalyst for the problems we're seeing as it relates to gang and youth violence? What are our issues, Devon?
Sure, Donna. Just like the young lady stated about the first incident, and I knew the accuser too, and I knew him 2 years ago. One of the things is he was part of our program called 1 Degree at a Time, Change the Way You Think and Act, but didn't complete it because of an incident. But if you study his history, the family was disarray. There was no father figure in the house. Even our program that we have currently here in Aiken, it's like beating somebody up to get a man to come to be a role model. And this is an issue that I have some of our young men in the audience today, and they know that when we portray true manhood in their life, it changes the way they think and act. And this is a simple process that is the missing link. We can solve this. We can really, truly solve this if we really come back men and do what we're being called to do.
So am I hearing you say that because of the lack of male presence and leadership and modeling from our homes and in our communities, that is one of the biggest reasons why we're seeing some of the issues we're seeing in gang and youth violence and troubled youth, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. It takes a male to make a baby, but that don't mean you're a father. It's spent time in being part of that process and encouragement and lifting up, not worrying about other things in life because you have that responsibility. And that's why, and Curtis would agree and others would agree with me, that the reason why a gang is a family and it's set up that process because they show, in a sense, like warp way, a much love and a concept of sense of belonging that should already happen at the house. And it's not happening. And this could be solved.
You have beside you Mr. Roger Rawlings, who is with the Family Marriage Coalition. I'm sure he's on the edge of his seat wanting to chime in with exactly your points. Mr. Roger?
Yes, I agree very much with what Devon said. And I would like to even go more to the root cause of what I think the problem is. As I think of policemen, their prime purpose is enforcement of the laws. It is recognizing that there are consequences for our actions. And I see that problem so often in families that people forget that there is a reaction to every action. There is a consequence to our actions.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we don't like authorities to come to us and tell us, you're doing the wrong thing, you need to change your behavior, or in some cases, you need to be punished for your behavior. Something needs to stop. And that has to go back to the family. If they don't get the father, if the father in the family is not there to enforce the rules in the family, they grow up with the feeling that they can do whatever they want, no consequences. I mean, I grew up in a family with a father who was, he was kind of an enforcer. So I had that feeling that there were consequences to my action. But if you don't have a father there, and for that matter, if you don't have a community that's willing to come behind those people who are in a position of enforcement, that's all they're doing. They're enforcing the law, and they're doing what they've been asked to do.
Yes.
Okay, but if we don't like the consequences, we don't want consequences, we're going to rebel against that authority. And if we haven't learned from the family, hope is kind of lost. We just, and I would like to ask that question. How many people here, particularly the young people, think there are consequences to their actions and think there should be consequences to bad behavior?
Let's ask that question, as Mr. Roger Rawlings put it to you, young people. By show of hands, and certainly if you have a comment to share, feel free to do so. How many of you feel as if there should be consequences for your negative behaviors? Yeah? Okay. All right. Let's explore that, okay? Because here's my dilemma with what's been said. We already know, and we can even take a look around the room. Chances are there are many young people who are living in a single-parent household. The statistics are there. We don't have to guess about it. So what do we then do with those who don't have that male role model in the home? It's almost like we have to take a several-pronged approach to this issue. There are those who have their current situations that, you know, a male figure in the home may or may not come. And then we're talking about also those who might be in the process of thinking about having a family one day, like some of the young people in this room. And as Devon says, any male young man, any male can produce a baby, but it's a totally different world when we're talking about being a daddy, being a father. And I know some of the young people, the adults in the room will second that emotion there. So what do we then do with those young people we already know, such as some of those who are currently in gangs, who have been missing that father figure, and they have built up rage pent up inside? Curtis?
The question would be, I would pose it back to the community, okay? I'm in a single parent home. I don't have a father, so I'm rebellious, okay? So is somebody gonna take time out to show me some love? Is somebody gonna really reach out and teach me from where I'm at and say, okay, we understand your situation, so we're still willing to help? You know, me speaking to the youth, that's one of the lost gaps that they believe that, hey, all of them are thrown into the same pot. They're thrown in, okay, if, you know, how can we say if a kid wears red, he's automatically a blood, or if he wears blue, he's a Crip? You know, from the youth that I speak to, it seems like they all are being titled as they either one or the other. You know, it's not that, you know, we are just youth growing up. You know, youth, they're gonna make some mistakes, I agree. But at the same time, is there any love offered back to them? Or is the community reaching out and putting their arms around them?
Let's give Curtis Jenkins a hand on that, because I think that's the core of why we're here today. Is the community has got to be willing to embrace these young people, to look at the fact that remains that we have some families that are missing some key elements, and until we're able to come together, black, white, wealthy, you know, not wealthy, whatever the case may be, and see that there is a need in a family and be willing to step out of our own comfort zones, our own homes, and help, then we're going to continue to have the kinds of problems we're having today. So that's what this is all about. I'm going to put this gentleman on the spot because I know he is doing exactly what you're saying, Curtis Jenkins, and I'm going to ask Mr. Will Jones to stand. He is a father, and he's also a gentleman. Yeah, we're going to have to pull the camera way back for this tall gentleman. But tell us about what you're doing to help the young males in this community, and if you believe it's more of those kinds of things that will help turn the tide as it relates to our young children.
Okay. Yes, one of the things that we're doing, and Friendship is sponsoring it, is the Boy Scouts. We have Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, ranging from age 5 all the way up through 14. Most of those boys come from single-family homes. That gives us a chance to mentor to them, to try to guide them, and to provide them with a father figure, shall we say. In addition to that, I'm also a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and President Barack Obama has tasked us to start a fatherhood initiative program, which we are in the first stages of doing right now. That program will be primarily focused on those fathers that are not in the home, males who may not be a father, but are still can have some influence and serve as mentors for young men and women of all ages, all economic situations, and try to bring them into a reality, shall we say, so that they realize that there are consequences for all of your actions.
Let's give Mr. Will Jones a round of applause. It's going to take more of that kind of thing to help us out. I want to now bring into discussion, we've got a couple of comments and we're going to go to them. Deputy Public Defender, Ms. Kelly Perkins Brown, we're talking about consequences. And of course, you see a lot of young people who may not appreciate consequences for their actions, and also where some of their behaviors are ripping up their families. Talk to us about those consequences as a result of some of these actions and how the law can then be on the side of our young people instead of it being viewed as punitive. You know, is there some help that can be given? Ms. Brown?
Well, in the juvenile justice system, the overall goal of the juvenile justice system is to seek what is in the best interest of the child, as well as to try to put things into place that will help a kid not become an adult criminal offender. I was really touched by what the first young lady said, because so oftentimes we forget in our grief and in our very deserved sympathy for victims of actions, as in this case these police officers, we forget that the accused shooters, they have families too. They have families, they have friends.
That's right.
That actions do, as you said, rip up. And part of the consequences, I think that a lot of people, particularly young people, just don't understand. Nothing that they do is done in a vacuum. Everything affects everyone else around them.
Yes.
You know, a violent crime has long-lasting effects on the victim. It has long-lasting, of course, direct effects on the person who's charged with the crime and may ultimately be convicted. The people that we forget about in that process are the other innocent victims, who are the friends and families of those who commit these offenses, who didn't have anything to do with that either, but their lives are also shattered and ripped apart. And I think if we can have more of a recognition of that, we might not have so much of the inflamed us against them kind of mentality that there often is.
This is the thing that's intriguing to me, is there's no secret what some of the consequences are for negative behaviors. There's no secret that nowadays if you commit armed robbery, you're probably looking at 15 to 20 years. There's no secret for if you commit murder, what you could be up against. So for those individuals that you're dealing with, do you ever get into a discussion on how is it that you allowed yourself to be involved in these kinds of things when you know these consequences are on the table for you? Is there even any consideration to that in these young people's minds? Ms. Brown?
Well, I think that recent studies have shown us that the juvenile brain is just not fully developed as the adult brain is. And that actually, until you turn, I think the studies say 25, around 25 years old, is the brain fully capable of putting together and understanding consequences and being able to process everything like you and I can sit here and think through and perhaps not act so impulsively. And so I think that the key is keeping folks out of situations where a bad decision can be made versus trying to get them to think about what choices that they'll make when they're there. My mother often said nothing good happens after midnight. If you're not out on the streets at all hours of the night, then you're not going to be in a situation where your friends say, let's go do something stupid.
Hello. All right. We have a comment from one of our audience members today.
I'm Wyman Pope, Sr., and I'm listening to the comments that are being made. First, I would like to say I commend the juvenile justice system for now looking at why the youth may be acting the way they do. okay, and they are trying to gear toward that to help the child. Because talking to youth, I have found that the average one that come through me, and I'm working with the 1 Degree at a Time program that Mr. Harris mentioned. When they come through me and I ask them if it was on a scale of 1 to 10, anger, where would anger be? And I usually get 7 to 8. So that means the child is already angry when they get to you. So you have to start dealing with that to try to find out why this individual is angry, why he is angry, okay? And that's the approach that's been taken. We do understand that we have to wrap our arms around these children in support. One of the problems that I do find, and I think I've heard it mentioned, is that when we are working with these children and we're sending them back to the same environment, then we are having problems with that. So we got to be able to figure out how do we reach the family itself so that we can also get the family involved.
Let's thank him for his comments. Certainly today, we are just barely scratching the surface of this dialogue, and that's why we're continuing it today. You are inside of Education Matters, and we are posing the question today as we continue the discussion, how can we make our communities better? Here inside of the River of Life Church, right here in Aiken, South Carolina, is a room full of concerned citizens, young people wanting to help make a difference. Some of them already are. After we hear from our sponsors, we'll come back and talk about some more solutions as we hear from our panelists. Maybe some of our young people, they're a little shy today, but I guarantee you they're taking it all in. My name is Donna Moore Westby, your host of Education Matters, where we're connecting you to the world one step at a time. We'll be right back.
The Will Gray operating the beautiful Midlands of South Carolina since 1921. Our mission has evolved over the years, and we now specialize in helping young people move past their obstacles in order to achieve success. We give students opportunities to lead, to develop social skills, to become active in their communities, and to taste success. Don't settle for less than the absolute best for your life. Contact us today to take the next step in your journey toward success.
When it comes to grilling, I'm the man. Using Dawn Seasoning Delight, I'm the grill master.
My seasoning is available at Kroger, Bilo, Food Line, Reeds, and Harvest. Look for it on display in the meat department. Also visit seasoningdelight.com for information and recipes. Dawn Seasoning Delight. It's so good.
Dawn Seasoning Delight is so good.
Tired of hearing automated answering services when you have questions about auto, home, renters, motorcycle, or life insurance? Call the Bryant Insurance Agency, where you will always receive a representative ready to answer your questions and provide friendly customer service just for you. Call today for a quick quote at 803-642-8505 or visit us at 909 Daugherty Road in Aiken. Takia and her staff are ready to serve you.
I lead a busy life, but I still have to make sure my family eats right. And everybody loves Dawn's Seasoning Delight. I use Dawn's on meats and vegetables. It's healthy, tastes great, and it's simple to use. It's like having a chef in a bottle.
My seasoning is available at Kroger, Bilo, Food Line, Reeds, and Harvest. Look for it on display in the meat department. Also visit seasoningdelight.com for information and recipes. Dawn Seasoning Delight. It's so good.
The Aiken Standard has served advertisers' needs in the CSRA for more than 100 years. In the new multimedia world, we offer a host of services with that same level of dedication to generating business for our clients. Everything from broadcast commercials, corporate events, and training videos, or even if you want your event streamed live across the world using our mobile, state-of-the-art production studio. Our staff has the skills and experience to take your project from concept to completion. Call us at 803-648-2311.
Welcome back inside of the broadcast. If you're just tuning in, we are live on location at the River of Life Church in Aiken, South Carolina. This is our second community forum where we are continuing to have the discussion, how can we make our communities better? If you are new to the area, you may not have realized that the Aiken area was rocked off its foundation, as I described, because of some back-to-back shootings that happened within a span of 3 months. This area did lose 3 of its public safety officers to some senseless shootings. And what we're trying to get to are the root causes of why these issues are happening. Can they even be repaired? We think so. Our panelists today have been offering some very thoughtful and very thought-provoking insight into why we're seeing some of the problems we're seeing today, as well as our, I'm going to call them, studio audience. Today, inside of River of Life, we do have a mixed group of middle, high school students, as well as young adults, and also some concerned citizens. Before we heard from our wonderful sponsors who helped make it possible for us to be here, we were talking about consequences of our actions. And Officer Harm, you said something to me that was very profound that I would love for the rest of the group to hear. Share that with us.
Well, like Ms. Brown said, there are eventually going to be consequences to all of your actions, whether those consequences are positive or negative. But unfortunately, what we see a lot of is the 17 and 18-year-olds making poor choices. And those choices, once you turn 17, you're in the adult system. And you turn 17, those choices stay with you for the rest of your life. They don't go away. So if a young man or a young woman makes a poor choice at 17 or 18, that could possibly impact them long term in possible education opportunities, job opportunities, and just whatever they're trying to do, those negative choices impact them.
That's right. Ms. Gail Diggs, you've been patiently waiting and taking all of this in, and I know it may seem like quite a bit for you to absorb. You are a new city councilwoman here in the city of Aiken. What has been the discussions at the city council level as it relates to helping us deal with our issues?
Well, Donna, first of all, I would like to say that, you know, the incidents that happened in December and in January could have happened anywhere. And people keep, I think, referring to our community now as a bad community because of the incidents. But we know that there are a lot of good people in our community, and there will always be a lot of good people in this community. There always be a number of people that may not respect people, property, or life. And we'll always have to deal with those people. But I can say the City Council is ready to support any programs that may be implemented in this community. I know we are very supportive of what's going on with our law enforcement, with community policing. I had the opportunity to participate in some activities at Governor's Aiken Park. And I'll never forget this. 2 weeks ago, a little girl, she was 10 years old, a student at Aiken Elementary, said to us when we got there, and our Chief Barranco was there, and several other officers were participating in a healthy community walk. And I introduced myself to her, and she said, okay, well, after I said I was on City Council, she said, well, you're here to help. And I said, I'm here to help your district. You live in my district, and any activities that you have in this district, I'll be here participating in them with you. And I said, I think that's true all over the city. And not just for your neighborhood. I said, but I don't just represent District 1. As a city council, I think I represent everyone. So she said, well, you're the good people. Then she pointed at Chief Barranco, and she said, but he's a policeman. He's a bad person.
Wow.
And Chief Baranko did something I thought that was very special. He got down to her level. He bent over and he said to her, he said, why do you think that I'm bad? She said, all police are bad.
Wow.
And he said, who told you that? And she said, everybody knows that. Everybody tells me that. And I reminded her, I looked around, I pointed out there were 4 other officers there. They were all participating in the walk. I said, these policemen are here because they actually care about what's going on in Governor's Aiken Park. They're here for you. Chief Baranko went another level, and he pulled out his business card after talking with her and telling her why the police were there and how they continue to be a visible part of that community. He pulled out his business card. He said, young lady, I want you to use this. I want you to call me anytime anybody bothers you, anytime you see some people in this community that might scare you. He said, I want you to be comfortable in doing that.
And Ms. Diggs, you've hit on an excellent point that I think we need to spend a moment on, and that is our young people, our citizens, need to see more of a positive interaction with police officers with them versus when they see a public safety officer that it's in a negative situation. And I think if we worked on together on fostering those relationships, whether it's the church bringing in public safety, or the community, if they're having different events, recognizing public safety and what public safety has done and is doing for us, then maybe it'll shift that paradigm for us as adults, but also for our young people. Let me ask you a question here, young people. How many of you were told or threatened with, because of your bad behavior, all right, if you don't straighten up, I'm calling the police, or I'm gonna get the police on you? Anybody? All right, I got, sure. You've heard it before. Even those of us who are parents. All right, if you don't sit in your seat and be quiet, oh, no, there's the cop, there's the car, right? Oh, they're looking for you. You've heard it before. We don't realize it, but we are setting up that mindset in our homes with our children that public safety officers, those men and women in uniform, are bad. And we've got to change that. Excellent point, Ms. Diggs. We had a comment from a lady that kind of looks like, who I kind of look like.
Thank you. I want to go way back to the discussion that dealt with single parents, no male in the home. I remember I was reflecting during the time you guys were talking when we became a single family after a divorce of my husband and I. And Donna was at a very impressionable age, I think somewhere between 13 and 15. And Tiffany, the other daughter, was 7 years younger. And there I am, head of the household with a teenager and and with a younger sibling who looked up to her. And I distinctly remember, and this is for the mothers who are in single families, please don't think that because a dad or a father or a male is not there, that it's going to be all lost, or it's not going to be a workable situation. I immediately thought that things are going to be different. There was times when I had to discipline Donna and Tiffany, and I would go in the bathroom and cry my eyes out. There were times when I had to hear the two of them say, why can't you be friends like Miss English and Cammie and the girls are? Well, I couldn't be friends of y'all's at that time. I'm glad that I stand to say today, I have two best friends in my household, and they are Donna and Tiffany. During those times, I had to be a mom and a dad. I had to be a role model. I had to be a breadwinner. I had to go out and make the money and bring the bacon home and cook it up and all of those things. But I tell you what helped me through. I was a member of a United Methodist Church, was born and reared that all my life. So they did not have an active youth group. So I went out in the community and visited different churches. And the one that I ended up joining was the church that had a very active youth group in the church. And there was times when the girls could not talk to me, but they could talk to Mrs. Doris Hickson. There was times when I didn't have money to make ends meet, but there was a Hightower and a Clyburn and an Auntie Rosalie Johnson who would just come from out of the sky and say, come, eat with us or go on vacation with us. There was Councilman Gail Diggs. She and I used to sit and talk and share war stories. There was never a time that she never missed an opportunity to admire the girls. There's workable situations. There's your church. There's a lot of other things out here that you can do to help you meet and succeed and survive the challenge of being a single parent. Thank you, and I know I'm long-winded, but that's me.
Let's give her a round of applause. Excellent, excellent advice.
Donna,
and we need that, yes.
If I might piggyback on
Please
what
do.
my friend Betty said. I certainly agree with you, Betty. I am a product of the same environment. I not only grew up without my father because he was killed in a car accident when I was 9, and my mother had 6 of us to raise, and I was the youngest. But even though Mama had a lot of health issues, she was determined that nobody would go to jail. She was determined that she was going to work, and she was not very educated. She had a 10th grade education, but she was going to keep doing something so that we wouldn't have to go on welfare. And don't think that I'm putting anybody down that may be on public assistance, because I'm not. All of us have situations that occur in our life when we have to do things that we may not ordinarily do. But my mom was determined. She raised all of us. Nobody went to jail. Everyone got a good education because she kept reminding us that we should want more than she had. And she kept us in church. That's the first thing. She built that foundation. There were 3 boys and 3 girls. We had uncles that sometimes reached out to my brothers because they knew it was even more important for them to have those male figures. We had church members that reached out to all of us to make sure that we had what we needed. And then I found myself in the same situation years ago, raising my 2 kids by myself. My youngest daughter was 8 years old when my husband decided that he wanted to do something else after 20 years of marriage. So I can tell you, it can be done. You just got to make sure that you accept the responsibility for your children and make sure that they accept the responsibility for their own actions. Because you've taught them right from wrong.
All right, we have a comment from the audience.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Janeth Walker, and I'm actually from the city of Bamberg, and I have a son that plays with the Aiken Warrior, and I shop here in Aiken, actually, so I'm a supporter of the things that you all are doing here. One of the things that I wanted to say, 2 comments. One, first, as a parent, it is important that we not only get involved in the lives of our children, but that we stay involved in the lives of our children, because if you don't take the time to raise your children, the streets will do it for you. And when the streets does it for you, the consequences can be very devastating. And the other comment that I want to make, and this is not just everyone that's inside of the room, and to the young kids in the room. As they say many times, children are about 10% of the population, but they are 100% of our future. They are 100% of my future, and they will be the 100% of even their future. So you decide what your future is to be. Thank you.
Excellent. Let's give her a round of applause. All right, we're going to continue this discussion, but take a look as we take a quick pause. And when we come back, we'll talk about what does the law have to do with all of this. Is creating more laws on the book one of the solutions? We'll explore that, as well as hear final words from our panelists. We'll be right back.
Answering a text takes away your attention for about 5 seconds. That is enough time to travel the length of a football field. It could also be the last 5 seconds of your life.
Teens say that texting is their #1 distraction.
Would you allow yourself or your children to get into a car where the driver was under the influence? Of course not. But getting into a car where the driver is texting is just as dangerous.
Talking on a cell phone while driving can make a young driver's reaction time as slow as that of a 70-year-old.
Texting and driving can result in the images you've seen. Can you imagine coming on to the scene of this accident and seeing all the mayhem, blood, death, injury, and then realize that it's your mother or father, your brother or your sister, your son or your daughter? Is being connected really worth this risk?
Will you continue to text and drive? You know somebody that has done it or continues to do it. We've all done it at one time. We should be thankful that we have not ended up like people in this video. Please send this link and forward to your school, parents, or other friends. You never know. You might just be saving their life.
If you are interested in becoming an individual or corporate sponsor of Education Matters, contact Donna Moore Wesby at 803-507-6793 or email at donnawesby@aol.com.
Welcome back inside of the broadcast. We have Michael here who would like to weigh in on today's discussion. Michael?
Sometimes people think we are all gang members, so why do they treat us like this?
All right, do you want to address that to any particular person?
No, ma'am.
All right, anyone want to address that for us? Let's give Michael a round of applause for even asking such a great question. All right, panelists?
Yeah, Don, I can address that.
Devon, yes.
You know, we talked about the issue with the law enforcement, how it's portrayed. The same is portrayed for our youth today, what we see in our media, and it desensitizes the society that we think every young male walking with his pants sagging is a gang member. That's not reality. That is not true. You know, it's just emulating or imitating something that they already understand is just a norm to them. So that is a sad thing, and this young man has to ask us that, but it's how society does things, because we do read a book by its cover. Just like the books or the video games that you purchase, you are fascinated with the cover of it, and you think this is going to be all this or it's not going to be all that. Well, society does the same thing, so we have to educate them that we are not that way by using our mind and our heart to educate them, not what we're wearing or what we're portraying. So
Excellent.
It's a sad thing that we have to hear that.
And you know, in doing research for today's broadcast, I saw some footage of one of our South Carolina lawmakers, and his exact words were, as we were talking about the accused or the alleged shooter, "This is the face of evil." Those were his exact words. This is the face of evil. Now, of course, in both of those shootings, they were black males. And to hear those words echoed from the mouths of a South Carolina lawmaker, that this black male, this is the face of evil, it disturbed me. I thought that sent the wrong message. Curtis, what's your thought on that?
I would definitely say it sends the wrong message. I go back, and that's what our youth are hearing. They're hearing that, well, this is the face of evil. So they're taking and saying, hey, you're saying this to me, instead of embracing it. One of the things we did, I just wanted to mention, we had a young man inside of our program. He plays for the Aiken Warriors. Now, he did something that was, you know, he should be in jail for. But we decided as a family of Aiken Warriors that we have to embrace this young man and to educate him and teach him that the mistake you made is not right, but we're going to give you some type of punishment and hope this will curtail him from even going into doing something like that again. So we got a young man, and I won't mention his name, but he's made to wear this shirt because he decided that, hey, he wanted to take his mother's SUV and go out joyriding. So he has to wear this shirt, and I know it's kind of embarrassing, but we make him wear the shirt to say, hey, we still love you. But you still have to realize what you did, what you've done. And so that is part of the punishment that we put in, we embrace it because we want to remain proactive and not reactive.
And there's no better words, Mr. Jenkins, than we can broadcast today. We must be proactive and not reactive. I think with those individuals here in this room today, from our panelists all the way to our young people in our audience today, community, we can come together and utter those words to stop the violence. We must be willing to come together, come to the table, and work it out. Our children are taking the lead from us. If we want our children to stop the violence, then we need to stop the violence. If we want our children to love, then we need to love. J.D. Ball, Officer Scotty Richardson, Officer Sandy Rogers. This broadcast is dedicated to you and your families, and it is our prayer that what you're about to see, we will never have to see here again in our area. My name is Donna Moore Westby, your host of Education Matters, where we're connecting you to the world of education one step at a time. Keep the discussion going.